How you doing? I'm Bob Sorensen, Chief Analyst for Quantum Computing here at Hyperion Research. I'm going to give you a quick overview and summary of our fifth annual Global Quantum Computing Market Survey, which was funded by the Quantum Economic Development Consortia, a group funded by the US-based National Quantum Initiative, but which has an increasingly international reach in terms of its membership, which I think is a great symbolic representation of how global quantum computing really is. It's no longer a single country or a single entity. It is a worldwide phenomena at this point. Let's just jump right into the numbers here. So as you can see, we estimated that in 2024, last year, the quantum market was worth about $1.07 billion. We're projecting a 27% annual growth rate out to 2027, which brings the total market to about 2.2 billion in 2027. Now it's interesting if you look at these are the last estimates we've done over the 5 years, and you can see that the curve is moving away from a linear one to really start to exhibit the characteristics of exponential growth. And we really support the idea that quantum is really positioning itself to just really start to show some aggressive performance gains from a revenue perspective in the out years. One of the reasons that we're optimistic about this is when we asked quantum computing suppliers about what they saw as top end user sectors in 2027, you can see here that quantum chemistry related issues, R&D and quantum technologies, pharmaceuticals, university academia, financial and such, were all mentioned as leading sectors. But the key here really is looking at the fact that quantum computing is viewed as being attractive to almost every sector that spans academia, commercial, and government. And specifically within the commercial sector, there is applicability or at least perceived end user value in almost every vertical that we tend to track here at Hyperion in the classical computer sector. That's one of the main reasons we have significant optimism about where the sector is going to be going in the next few years. Now, when we asked about primary end user motivations, why quantum computing suppliers think that end users are really interested in what's going on in the quantum space. The first one is pretty clear. It's implementing new algorithms not possible on classical counterpart systems. But really, another one by almost half of the survey respondents said they want to address concerns with future performance capabilities of classical computer systems. Deriving increased performance capabilities from classical systems is becoming much more costly, much more time consuming, much more power consumptive, and in some senses, certainly within the exascale range, is becoming outside the financial reaches of all but the most well-budgeted government agenda research projects. So really, quantum is looking to fill a number of voids, not only by bringing new capabilities, but to address some of the existing limitations in the classical HPC world. When we asked these same users about what was the hurdles to adoption from quantum computing, it really didn't come out to be things like technology in terms of where we're not really sure what qubit modality we need to deal with or what kind of algorithms may be best suited for our workloads. The biggest one became the question of how can we integrate quantum computing capabilities into our existing classical computing infrastructure. And that speaks not only from a hardware perspective, which really isn't all that complicated when you get right down to it nowadays. Quantum computing hardware has become much more productized and more amenable to being installed in commercial installations. But it's really more about the software integration. How can an organization introduce quantum computing capabilities as an accelerator that's seamlessly integrated into their existing classical computation ecosystem? And that is a traditional kind of concern with any new technology. It's really not the technology per se, it's the integration capabilities that bring some problems to bear. And of course, the third one, traditional kind of concern about demonstrating ROI. How can you justify the procurement of a quantum system or use of quantum capabilities from a return on investment capability? As more and more compelling workloads and demonstrated performance gains over classical systems come to the fore, we think that's going to become a much more trivial problem to deal with. When we asked about what end users were, how they were working forward in all this, we talked to quantum computing suppliers and found that right now about 71% of quantum computing suppliers actually have a current relationship with at least one quantum computing end user. And of those 71% of the respondents we talked to, 74% of those organizations said that they're involved in partnerships to explore new sector or vertical specific related opportunities. This is where quantum is moving in some sense from a general purpose kind of application to something that says, okay, we have solutions that are specific to, say, the oil and gas, the finance sector, the aerospace sector, the government or academic sector. The partnerships are really about the exploration of what quantum can bring to specific end users who have their own class of problems, their own computational capabilities that they want to accelerate, and really to come up with much more user specific use cases for the quantum systems. We can talk a little bit quickly about some of the major algorithms that the quantum computing sector is looking to. Certainly, modeling and simulation, optimization, and AI-based applications are seen as most viable going forward. But we're seeing some emergence in terms of hybrid quantum algorithms. And here, there's a combination of both. The idea that quantum algorithms can have some element of mod sim, some element of optimization, but also the sense that quantum classical hybrid algorithms also are could be an important tool in the toolbox when it comes to some interesting applications in the quantum classical compute environment. Some of the QC architectures that are most popular, as seen in, say, by 2027, the NISQ machines, the noisy intermediate stage quantum systems, are certainly going to be the dominant capability going forward. What we saw this year that we hadn't seen before is the emergence of importance of digital simulators, both classical CPU and GPU based machines that are geared towards really helping those who are developing quantum algorithms and applications fine tune, test, and verify their quantum research on machines that are, quite frankly, error free. This gives them the ability to build confidence in those applications and algorithms. So when error corrected quantum systems come online, they have already verified them on classical counterparts. The access to hardware is one of the biggest changes we're seeing now, is where quantum has traditionally been more of a cloud access model, where end users had a low barrier to entry, a pay-as-you-go model, good ability to change vendors, change quantum modalities with ease. We're seeing more interest in on-prem interest, and this is really what we think is the idea that organizations are starting to position themselves. So within the next 2 to 3 years, when quantum utility really starts to hit, when demonstrated performance gains on quantum can become superior and clearly identifiable over classical counterparts, organizations want to be able to hit the ground running. And the best way to do that, we think, is to start today and really think about how you're going to bring those on-prem systems into your overall ecosystem. So we're projecting some significant moves forward in terms of on-prem procurements of quantum computing starting this year and moving forward, certainly within the next 3 to 4 years. The last thing I want to touch on briefly is quantum computing and distractions with large language models. We're all aware of things like generative AI and particularly large language models such as ChatGPT, bringing some real interest to the sector. And we were concerned, and as were most of the quantum computing organizations we spoke to, that interest in large language models and the budgets, in some sense, that they entail in terms of hardware access, buying GPUs to run those kinds of things, could basically distract from interest in quantum. And that is considered in the short term a real possibility. But I think what it demonstrates more is that there is a need for quantum computing to deliver its technology and performance gains on a regular cadence, to rise above some of the short-term enthusiasm in quantum in large language models, but also it highlights the perceived end user interest in performance gains, no matter how it's delivered. Classical computer users are interested in really continuing the performance gains on their most complicated workloads. And if large language models can do that today, that's great. But the promise of quantum, we think, in the next 2 to 3 years is going to bring those kinds of technologies back to the forefront of interest in the advanced computing community. So that is the end of my rather quick presentation. Here's my email address. If you have questions or comments, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in for this particular session. And I will be attending ISC next week. So if you have any questions and you see me in the hallway, stop and grab me and let's have a conversation. Otherwise, thanks and have a good day.